My name is Martin Klaassen and welcome to another edition of Light Talk. I hope you're all well. I know the coronavirus is spreading quite fast around the world. Luckily, the mortality rate doesn't seem to be that high, and if we go about our business and apply proper hygiene, I think we can get through this. Travel, of course, as I mentioned last time, is being restricted quite a lot, so a lot of conference calls. But having said that, last week I also spoke about the challenges that we have in regards to obtaining proper fees for our services. I want to extend this edition by talking about budgets, because getting on board is one thing, but then getting your specifications approved and applied is a totally other story. It's a totally different story. We happened this week to have several discussions in three different projects about budgets on three totally different levels. The first level is what I would call where everything is still on spec. We have one project here in Singapore, high-end hotel, 5-6-star hotel, where the client has spared no cost in hiring one of the top interior designers in the world. Everything needs to be done like he wants it to be done. Everything has to be at specs. So you would expect that we don't have any budget issues, but the contrary is true. We really need to try and figure out how we can get as specs for as cheap as possible. I mean, this is what is working in Asia means. It's always about money. And even if you want to get it as specs, you need to somehow get it down as low as possible. So we had a meeting today with the client and project management to see how can we get the cost down and still get the interior designer, the lead designer, to sign off on all the specifications. Now, he's based in the US. For now, we have managed to get his specifications done by a Japanese company that he is approved of. And then the next step is how can we get the cost down by finding different ways of getting it to site. So maybe not through the contractor, so the client is now looking at whether they can get it by purchasing it directly from the manufacturer that he has in mind. We are looking at the guts. Do we really need the lamps and bulbs that he has specified from somewhere out of Europe or the US? So we're looking at equivalents here that have the same performance and quality. In the end, his main concern is about the lighting effect and how the thing looks like. So we have a little bit of leeway in terms of specifying the performance and the quality of the light sources. So even though you would think everything can be done as specs, we're still having quite a lot of challenges in trying to get that cost down. On a secondary level, we have been working this week. We had an extensive workshop for another resort hotel where the client very much wants us to follow the qualifications and the specifications that we have given them. But they have a QS that doesn't really understand what sort of references need to be applied to get a proper, balance between what they should budget and what they should actually spend. So we spent time with the client explaining what our references projects were in similar situations and what we have spent previously and what the previous clients have been willing to spend for similar projects of similar sophistication of hotel. So that's also quite an interesting discussion. That's value engineering in trying to find some alternatives, some similar equivalents, trying to stick to some of the specifications that we had, but most of all making sure that QS, which is the quantity surveyor that needs to sort of keep all the costs down as much as possible for the client, understand that his references need to be correct. You cannot refer to a city hotel as a reference for a island resort hotel. These are totally two different situations, one with different climate situations than the other, also different supply situations than others. So we went to quite a lot of work to explain and try to bring everybody on board that when you talk about a resort hotel on a remote island, you have totally different circumstances also in terms of maintenance and all that. supply routes, that obviously affects the cost. So it's another different level. Again, we're trying to come to a compromise in terms of the budgets, but also in terms of the quality of the light sources. We're getting there, but from the original reference that they had, which was just a family hotel, basically they had about 1/5 of the budget that we had calculated. They realized that, and they came up with another reference point, which was about slightly more than half of what we had in mind. And if we can bring down our value engineering to a level that we are somewhere about 20-30% below what we have now, I think we can find ourselves a compromise. But it's quite some challenging work to get to a budget level that all parties can agree with. The client, the developer, obviously wants to have the cost as low as possible. We want to have the quality as good as possible, and so does the operator. We're talking about a hotel here again. But I think it applies in general to all kinds of projects, that somehow you have to find a balance between good quality, value for money, and the budget that the client has in mind, which is always at the lower end. And the third project that we had budget discussions over this week was of a hotel somewhere in Thailand. The specifications that we have given them was really what we thought was already quite sharply priced, local supply, local manufacturing, but basically they totally ignored our specifications and went out to someone in the Thai market to find something that, well, let's say looks alike what we are trying to achieve, but it's not really there. So we need to go through all the specifications and say why this is not good or why this is acceptable or not acceptable. It's quite a lot of work. Rather than just follow us or asking us to value engineer, they just gave it to a local supplier that they are probably familiar with and asked them to quote. And then we need to go through that and say why something is acceptable or not acceptable. Obviously, we try to be compromising in the sense that we understand that they are used to much lower budget levels, but at the same time, by hiring us, they also need to appreciate that our recommendations are made because we have certain basic lighting level quality in mind. Lighting effects in mind that they also want to achieve, because that's what they approved. Our concept was approved, the lighting effects are approved, so they need to understand that it comes with a certain quality of lighting. So three totally different levels of budgeting, value engineering. The high end, where you totally go with the lead designer's specifications. There are no change in the specs, well, basically no change in the specs, but you try to find the most efficient and economical way to purchase it and supply it to site. The second level is where you are given the free hand to sort of value engineer it down to a level that you're still happy with and the client can still be happy with. And then the third level is where basically you have little influence. They're just going to do what they want to do with the money that they have, and then you're trying to sort of limit the damage, so to speak. Making sure that you still get something that at least you feel is still okay. Not easy. There have been projects where I decided to walk away because it was just not good enough. This one I have good hopes, because I think they appreciate that, but they just don't have the sort of money. So Asia for you, always about money, whatever you do. Trying to get the client and educate the client about the quality that you are trying to apply in your project is as important as educating the client about your fees. So that's it for this week. Stay well, stay healthy, and till next time.